The primaries for the gubernatorial recall election are about a week and a half away.
Yeah, it's Thursday. It's not next Tuesday, but it's the Tuesday after that. And if there were to be a change at the top of the state, would it actually change anything? Fox 11's on special assignment tonight with Mark Leland, speaking to candidates to examine what the future of Wisconsin might hold.
After a year and a half of Governor Scott Walker's policies, both Democrats and Republicans acknowledge political change has split the state in two. Workers, communities, and even families are taking sides, and all are strong in their beliefs.
Never before in my lifetime have I seen this situation where a neighbor doesn't want to talk to neighbor about politics because it's too explosive.
Several Democrats are vying to end Walker's first term in the governor's office early. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, former Dane County Executive Kathleen Falk, State Senator Kathleen Vinehout, and Secretary of State Doug LaFollette are the leading contenders in the Democratic recall primary on May 8th. Each are promising to reverse course on Walker legislation, particularly the issue of collective bargaining.
Union busting!
You know, I have a better life, and we all have a better life because the generation before us that fought for a fair day's wage for fair day's work and a 40-hour work week and the right not to be discriminated against in a workplace.
Kathleen Falk promises as governor not to sign a new budget unless collective bargaining is restored. For that, she has won early approval of the state's largest unions, including the teachers union.
You've indicated you will overturn that, you will reverse that, and you won't sign a new budget if it's not included in that?
Eliminating collective bargaining was successful in March of 2011 because Republicans controlled the entire legislature. The Senate passed the measure 18-1 when Democrats walked off the job, not having enough votes to stop it anyway. The Assembly was also in Republican control and sailed to a 53-42 vote, and the Republican governor signed the bill into law. But now, even if a Democrat defeats Walker in the June 5th recall, Republicans will still maintain control in the Assembly, where there are 59 Republicans and 39 Democrats. And while the entire Assembly is up for re-election in November, no one is counting on a change in power, so Republicans will be able to block any Democratic attempt to reverse legislation.
I don't think it would be an easy task at all, especially since whoever is elected will likely face at least one chamber of the state legislature that still remains Republican. Is that going to be tough? I mean, if you don't have Republicans in the Assembly to help this along?
I've been a county executive for 14 years. I've worked with the whole cross-section of Republicans and Democrats, and I know how to negotiate and solve problems. That's what I've done, and that's what I'm eager to do.
Other candidates admit that problem-solving might not come as quickly as changing who's governor.
Yeah, I think next year when things settle down, we can begin to talk about bringing back the rights of working men and women to talk about their jobs, workplace security, pensions, health care.
Will you be able to make those changes even if the Assembly stays in Republican control?
Oh, and obviously in the short run it will, and maybe even in the next term it might. I think it will. I think I can. And again, I can work with people.
From each of the Democratic candidates, the answer to restoring collective bargaining is bringing both Democrats and Republicans together.
Yes, I think it is possible, and I think the new governor, if the governor's going to be successful, has to drive that train right down the middle of the tracks. We can't go hard right and we can't go hard left.
Well, I think the first change will be civility. We'll start talking to each other. I'll meet with people on all sides of the issues, Republicans, Democrats.
The state has been at civil war with each other over politics, and I can end this war.
Each of the Democratic candidates say they will help to heal all of Wisconsin after a very turbulent year and a half. Republicans, though, say that healing likely won't take place, no matter who wins.
We're going to have a big election on the 8th and on June 5th. And when that election is over, the state will still be divided regardless of who the governor is.
State Senator Mike Ellis, a Republican from Neenah, is president of the Senate, and in January he predicted before all the recall efforts began that it would further divide the state.
But it's going to leave 10 years of divide in Wisconsin. We are not going to get back to normal here for at least a decade.
And with the union-backed recall elections last year and those going on now, Ellis says none of it is helping to heal any wounds.
Using the recall to placate a special interest group will further divide the state.
Political analysts envision an uphill battle, too, when it comes to legislators working together.
I think it'd be rather difficult to do. I don't think that the unions have built any goodwill with the Republican Party. They haven't really given the Republicans any reason to be cooperative on that particular issue, especially after the protests at the Capitol and what they perceive to be threats against their party and their members.
And Ellis brings up another concern: cost. Walker eliminated a $3.6 billion structural deficit with his controversial budget and held the line on taxes. And by eliminating collective bargaining, Walker gave local school districts and municipalities more control in covering their budgets.
Turning the clock back transfers the fiscal obligation from the locals back to the state and/or property taxes.
How do the Democrats plan to pay for undoing Walker's plan?
It won't be easy. The budgets are going to be tight. The economy in Europe is still collapsing. Things in Washington are in a stalemate. But we have to do Wisconsin ideas for Wisconsin problems.
Where's that money going to come from?
I appreciate that question. And when I put together my alternative budget, I accepted the employees' concessions that they give: increased pension, paying half of their pension, paying more for their health insurance.
Vinehout says Walker should have claimed victory with those concessions. She would have ended there. Walker says even greater cuts were needed to balance the budget without raising taxes.
Our reforms are working. Kathleen Falk and Tom Barrett are both embracing policies that would take us back to the days of double-digit tax increases, billion-dollar budget deficits, and record job loss. I don't think people want to go backwards.
Members of the state's teachers union, who are among those paying more for health and pension benefits to help balance local school budgets, agreed to the concessions when pressured. And they aren't sure if their contributions will ever go back to what it was. But Tony Lardnois with the Green Bay Education Association says they're just focused on stopping the Republican momentum.
It's certainly going to take time to change it around. The most important thing, if either one of them, when either one of them are elected, is to make sure that collective bargaining is put into place, because then you stop the bleeding.
Both Republicans and Democrats agree there are about 46% of voters who support Walker and 46% who oppose him. That leaves the recall decision in the hands of the other undecided 8%, with no guarantee anything will really change. On special assignment, Mark Leland, Fox 11 News.